Hello everyone, Tinwin Lala here. I am actively planning a through hike of the Tahoe Rim Trail and am supposed to leave in about a week and a half here. However, as I'm sure many of you know, the Mosquito Fire is active and growing around Lake Tahoe. As I go through what it looks like to track that activity and deal with the planning side of things for a trip like that, whether it's backpacking or small through hike, section hike, I thought it would be maybe useful, maybe helpful to some of you who also plan activities in the awesome outdoors that is the state of California. Unfortunately, planning to be outdoors in California, especially during the summer, early fall, you kind of do have to add the layers of what if there's a wildfire to your planning. We're gonna chat about planning, tracking fire activity, being able to pivot, and going through the emotions of a situation like this. Fires can happen anytime, of course, but as mentioned, the periods that are more at risk, whether it's because of the weather, drier conditions, are those late summer, early fall. So that's kind of what we're looking at here. I'm not super experienced. I'm sorry, I'm sweating because I do not have AC and it's still pretty muggy dealing with the tropical storm K that is in my area right now. So I'm dealing with the tropical storm and talking about wildfires, California. I am not super experienced with living near wildfires necessarily. I experienced my first wildfire when I was in an area of Santa Clarita, north of LA. And I remember a fire started up the hill, less than a mile from us, and firefighters quickly came in, stopped the fire, and I just thought that was pretty exciting to see how quickly they were able to do that. The next time was in 2020 in San Diego County, where I currently live. I woke up and it was dark and orange. Anyone who has lived in an area that was overtaken by smoke clouds, you understand what I mean when I say it's just a different kind of dark when it comes to smoke clouds, different kind of orange. And I went to the beach later that day, opened my snacks, and suddenly there was ash in my snacks. And I just didn't understand at that time that a wildfire that was so far away could impact me on a beach in such an extreme way of having a handful of ash on the beach. It was a very surreal experience, and it made me really have more respect for how wildfires can affect health, even if they're not right next to you. So being aware of that, I think, is very important when it comes to planning outdoor trips. So let's talk about planning. Flexible. Being flexible is something anyone who backpacks or through hikes, I think you understand that already. Being flexible is key because there's so much that's out of your control when you go out into nature, whether that's wildlife, weather, other people, of course, but being flexible, first of all, when it comes to transportation. Are you flying to your destination on this trip? Are you renting a car? Are those things refundable? I always try to fly with an airline like Southwest that will be able to refund or credit that flight pretty much up until the day that you have to fly. I know that I can cancel that trip and I'll be able to use those funds at some point. Flexible accommodation, whether you're booking with hotel points or hotels.com, booking.com, a lot of those options will allow you to cancel up until a few days before and get a full refund. Booking direct with a hotel is also a really good option. Some of the time they will not allow for that same refund flexibility. So get on the phone, explain the situation. Tell them, hey, I'm just a person talking to another person. Sometimes it doesn't work and you just have to take that financial loss with grace as well as you can. But I think getting on the phone and speaking with kindness to a person can help when it comes to those situations. Another thing specific to backpacking or through hiking is being flexible with your resupply. I am choosing not to send myself boxes for resupply on the Tahoe Rim Trail because of the fact that I knew I was planning my trip during wildfire season. I didn't want to put all of that money for food into a resupply box that I might not be able to reach. That allows me to kind of change up my itinerary as needed. With that means I need to know where are those resupply points along my trail. I need to know all of them because my route may change. I may only be going one side. I could be going counterclockwise instead of clockwise. And so I need to resupply at a different point than I normally would going in the other direction. That is specific to the Tahoe Rim Trail because it is a circle, not a point to point. So just keep in mind, like, what does your route look like? What is that section or what is that long trail? For someone doing a longer trail like the PCT, okay, so you know that you're going to be hitting NorCal during those later summer weeks or early fall weeks. Maybe you don't send yourself resupply boxes for those sections. You just rely on towns. So things like that, being flexible and keeping those things kind of at the forefront of your mind. Legit sweating, guys. So we've kind of talked about being flexible with the planning portion. And now it comes to, as you're planning, actively tracking what fires are in the area of the trip that you are planning. So I have been using the CAL FIRE site. I keep it up on my phone, and I know that I can check if I see a little fire icon. I click on that fire, I see how many acres have burned, if it's active, and do some deeper digging to try and understand if that fire is growing or if it's just kind of a smaller situation that will be handled. I noticed about a week ago that there was a fire to the west of the Tahoe area called the WILDFIRE. I first step called the forest supervisor's office, asked if that was something they were seeing smoke from or if it should be anything I was going to worry about. And the Tahoe Rim Trail is not a trail that necessarily requires a through hiker permit. They do offer them, which helps in the desolation wilderness area where permits may be a little harder to get on the dates that you will be passing through. They did tell me that just due to the season, they were not even issuing permits until about 7 to 10 days before your estimated start time. Well, they told me, hey, we're just really waiting to see where the winds blow. About 7 hours after that conversation, there was another fire icon, and that fire is now what we all know of as the Mosquito Fire. And that again started just south of that initial fire, the WILDFIRE, also to the west of Tahoe. So again, I called the forest supervisor's office and same answer, we have to wait and see what the winds do. So winds are obviously a big deal when it comes to this fire. Little did we know that this fire was gonna more than quadruple in size over about 2 days. Okay, so the worst has happened. Not only is there a fire near where you are going on your trip, that fire is very active and is creating a lot of smoke for the area you're going to be in. What do you do now? There are a few sites that I started looking at. First, I Googled the name of the fire that I know from the CAL FIRE website. I have spoken to the Forest Service supervisor number that I got from the Tahoe Rim Trail's amazing website of resources. The next thing, I start checking social media. Facebook and Twitter are very, very useful when it comes to real time, down to the minute, what is going on the ground with that fire. How is it affecting the immediate area? You're looking at the sheriff's office, the local counties, public Facebook and Twitter pages. You want to be checking that CAL FIRE Twitter in relation to the specific fire that's affecting you. Again, those local counties' Twitter pages, the Forest Service, and the Forest Service will have different Twitter handles depending on which forest it is. So just making sure that you're aware that while one forest Twitter may mention a closure, there might be, in fact, more closures you're not aware of if you're not checking all the different forest sites. In relation to that, we want to be looking at fire.ca.gov/incidents, and you can again get to this information by Googling Mosquito Fire or the name of whatever fire that you're tracking. InstaWeb is another amazing resource for up-to-date acreage burned, containment level or percentage. So that's instaweb.nwcg.gov, and you'll want to look at the specific incident for your fire. Watch Duty is also another great incident site. So you can Google Watch Duty along with the name of the fire, like Mosquito Fire, and just kind of make sure you're looking for the Watch Duty link. And again, you're going to be tracking kind of like the size and the impact of that fire. The reason for this is you want to understand the impact, how long is this going to last? And once you kind of get the idea that, okay, this fire is serious, this fire is lasting, it's not being contained, now the main concern with that tracking is trail closures. Again, checking the social media feeds, Twitter for links to closure notices is super important because they will not always be on the same Forest Service website. There may be multiple locations that you have to go to find different closures. The main fs.usda.gov site will have links to these closures. I would just again Google Forest Service with the name of the fire that you're tracking and closure notice, alert notice. If there is a dedicated website for the specific long trail that you're doing, for example, I'm doing the Tahoe Rim Trail. They have an amazing website that organizes info. So it could be trail conditions, permits, resupply locations. The PCT has their own website, the AT. So check in on those websites and see if they have anything posted. I checked back again today to the TahoeRimTrail.org and notice that they also have those closure notices and how they impact to the Tahoe Rim Trail posted at the top of the trail conditions page. So again, yeah, you're gonna have to do a little bit of digging sometimes, comparing and contrasting to make sure you understand how those trail closures affect where you are going. Once you know those closures, then you can take action as far as the next steps in your planning. The other aspect of tracking after you know that the fire is legit, it's happening, it's growing, is air quality. Our entire activity is outdoors, so we need to make sure that we're taking care of our bodies for the long term. A few sites that are helpful for tracking that air quality are sites like fire.airnow.gov. It will sync to your location and then you can pan over to the area that you know you're looking at. Another one is outlooks.airfire.org. Winds can change everything. So paying attention to wind forecasts, watching YouTube videos by professional meteorologists in regard to your specific fire can be really helpful when looking into the near future. This is where the pivots start. It's going to look different for every person and every trip. Did you book a flight? Is there another trail near the airport where you're landing that you can do a backpacking trip or a section hike instead? What permits are required for that trail? A lot of times, certain areas don't require permits, so it's a non-issue. You can just pivot to that trail instead. However, especially in California, permits are really important. So just having to do a little bit of extra research and knowing, okay, when is it time to truly make that full pivot and invest that time into creating a new itinerary for yourself. Now, as far as financially, are you financially flexible so you could rent a car? For example, I'm flying into Reno. if I could rent a car, I could drive down to Yosemite, I could drive down to Mammoth within a few hours and possibly get a walk-in permit to do one of the trails there. There are a few fires and smoke and situation like that that have been affecting Yosemite as well, which brings me to the next point. If you can't pivot to the location where you were planning on arriving, if you were flying, something like that, can you pivot local? What are local backpacking options that maybe you haven't explored yet that are open depending on what the weather is for you locally? Unfortunately for me, local to San Diego County, trails that might be interesting to me would be maybe around Idlewild or Big Bear. There have also been fires in those areas very recently. Some are still going. I have to really think about, how would that affect, again, just my health overall. Can I plan a section hike of a certain part of the PCT? Do I have time to email for those permits? Can I get on the phone and convince people, sob story, I really was dreaming of the Tahoe Rim Trail, but can you give me a permit for this area of the PCT for a week instead? So being willing to pivot, be flexible, and just be humble when you approach people about getting those last minute permits. One of the last things that I would love to chat with you guys about are those emotions. It's easy to get obsessive. I found myself watching hours of town hall meetings for the counties that are being affected by this fire, just to learn a little nugget that might give me hope that I can still go on my through hike. Managing the time that you are giving to the situation in your mind and the emotions that you are allowing to follow the information that you're ingesting. I think it's important to allow yourself to feel sad or even a little bit of grief about the situation of partially losing your trip or losing all of the trip. There's a lot that goes into planning a backpacking trip or a long trail. Financially, mentally, emotionally, you are invested in that dream. You've taken off from work, you've adjusted things. I know personally, I've been doing weeks of PT to get over or get through an overuse injury that I got from preparing for this hike. And I just got cleared by my podiatrist as well in regard to a different foot issue that I've been dealing with, and I may talk about that in a future video. But I did get cleared for this trip and I was elated. I was, yes, feeling that high. We also found out that we are going to be moving for my husband's job to the opposite end of the country. And at first I was going to have to give up this trip, but some of those dates shifted. And yes, so excited. I'm going on my Tahoe Rim Trail through hike, and then this fire. So yes, emotions are real and it's okay to feel them. But following that is keep perspective. By watching those YouTube videos and those town halls related to the Mosquito Fire, it quickly puts into perspective that yes, I may be losing this big dream of a trip, but I'm not losing my home. I'm not losing my property. I'm not having to find shelter for my pets and shelter for myself for who knows how long. I'm not having to choose what gets left behind and what I take with me. I am safe. I am breathing clean air. Being sad, being disappointed is okay and natural. But it's good to be honest about what we're actually losing here and how much worse it really could be. And there's thankfulness in that. Finally, breathe. And I'm telling myself this, and the emotions are real. Breathe and know when to let go. I'm not sure when letting go will be for me. I don't know how much time to invest into my pivot plans until I know for sure whether or not it's a go or a no-go. I'm sad, but I'm holding on to a little bit of hope for now. Here we are, planning, tracking, pivoting, and feeling all of the things. To all my fellow backpackers and through hikers who have dealt with similar situations and much worse on the ground, I see you and I wish all of us a big hug because I get it, just a little, and it's tough. Thanks for listening. I hope this helps even one person when it comes to wildfire planning around a trip in the outdoors. Please like this video and subscribe to my channel so you can see where my feet take me next. Means a lot. See you next week.